CNN fake news, Jim Acosta's basically been on a war against the White House from day one. Clearly not an objective news reporter and part of the Destroy Trump media and the propaganda media. And I think he got an education from our friend Steve Miller. What is your position at the White House? I guess you're the senior advisor to the president?
Yes, that's right, Sean.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the program. And I look forward to talking a little bit about what President Trump is going to do today to make an immigration system that works for Americans.
Yeah, well, I want to ask, first of all, that was on the immigration issue, but it's not just that. Have you ever seen such hostility towards a single president in your lifetime by the news media, which I think is so abusively biased and corrupt?
No, and I'll also make this point, Sean, which is that, and your audience understands this well, which is that the wrong term to use, in my view, is the mainstream media. Because, Sean, you're mainstream, I'm mainstream, President Trump is mainstream. They're real mainstream American values. Strong borders, a strong national defense, a limited government that stays within its means, abiding by the Constitution. What you saw at that press briefing was actually an extremist point of view. The point of view that basically says that you can't have strong border controls in the United States of America. You can't set limits. You can't prioritize the needs of American workers. And so you have a movement inside elements of the media that is openly hostile, not only to the president, but to the ideas and views that animated millions and millions of American citizens to come out and vote in the last election.
Well, you know, when I talk about the president, I think the president has a strong identity and agenda for the country to solve our problems. And this is my biggest criticism of Republicans right now. We know the president is willing to sign a repeal-replace bill, unlike the phony show votes that we had all the years Obama was president. I know that the president wants a middle-class tax cut. He wants a corporate tax cut of 15%. He wants repatriation. I know the president wants energy independence. I know the president believes in health savings accounts as solutions. He wants to build a wall. He wants education back to the states. We know where he stands on vetting refugees and identifying evil in our time, radical Islam. Now, for 7.5 years, Stephen Miller, the Republicans promised to do all of these things. And they were ill-prepared to lead, and I don't see any identity. What do they stand for in the House and Senate? You know, what are they hearing now when they go back home? I have a pretty good idea that the people aren't happy with them.
Well, Sean, I think the point that you made is so important, which is that the president has an agenda for America, and we know what it is, and now we need Congress to implement that agenda. What we've done already on the administrative side and what we've done already on the executive side has been a sea change. But Congress needs to step up and repeal and replace Obamacare. Congress needs to work with us to pass a middle-class tax cut and corporate tax reform. It needs to work with us to get control over our borders and our refugee programs and our vetting policies. They need to work with us to get regulatory relief and reform, where we've already done historic things in a short period of time. This is the agenda that the American people voted for, whether they're Democrat, Independent, or Republican. It's the right agenda for our country, and it's an agenda rooted in our history and our values as a nation.
You know, if these simple things, I watched the president very closely on his most recent speeches that he gives, or the town halls, or I guess really their stadium speeches, and you see the overflow crowds, and you see the intensity and the applause and the energy that the president brings to these issues. And then I'm thinking, okay, are the Republicans not watching the reaction that the president is getting to the things that he's saying? And do they really think if they don't get their job done that there are not going to be consequences for them not keeping their promises?
Look, I think that no matter what party you're in, that the American people need to make sure that they are communicating to their members of Congress what they expect to be done this year and for the years to come. This country needs corporate tax reform. It needs a middle-class tax cut. It needs to strengthen immigration enforcement and vetting into our country. We need to repeal and replace Obamacare and end the Obamacare catastrophe. and we need to create a leaner, smaller government that lives within its means and that prioritizes the defense and protection of our country.
Let me ask what happens. I know Congress is on vacation again, and it's amazing. And I spoke to somebody in the White House. I heard the president's not on vacation, and actually the president was tweeting out all the work he's doing. So is he not taking a vacation right now, as is reported?
Well, I think the good way to look at it is the president of the United States is really never on vacation. I mean, every day the president, whoever the president is always involved in governing the affairs of the nation. But this president in particular is always deeply engaged and invested in everything that's going on and everything that's happening. And I think you'll be seeing some of what he's doing in the coming days in terms of different events and activities.
Well, I think that at the end of the day, I think that Congress... What would you say they ought to do on health care when they get back? Because I know the president, for his economic plan, counted on $1 trillion in savings on repealing and replacing Obamacare. So does that hurt the ability of the president to do the type of economic reform that he wanted to jumpstart this economy?
Well, I'll just refer to what the president said when he was in West Virginia, and you were talking about the overflow crowds, the enormous enthusiasm, the incredible excitement about the president and what he's leading on. And he said in that speech, Congress needs to keep its promises, fulfill its commitments, live up to its word, and get this across the finish line. They were one vote short, one vote shy, and they need to keep working on it and to get the job done and keep their promises to the American people.
Well, I think it's a basic, simple, fundamental issue. What does this Republican Party stand for? And is this Republican Party going to keep their promises? And I find there's a lot of hostility within the Republican Party, over issues, all issues involving President Trump. And I'm sitting there thinking, I thought you wanted this for the last 7.5 years. I know you voted for it 60 times. It's just frustrating. Let me play a little bit more about you. I know we played you with Jim Acosta. How did you feel after that exchange? Did you get a lot of positive email?
Well, I was very grateful. I did get a lot of very nice comments from a lot of people. And, of course, it's not about me. It's about President Trump, what he's doing for the country. But I think that people were excited because the media was confronted with cold, hard facts, just facts, information, the truth. And it was basically an environment where they were not allowed to get away with spin.
Do you think the media there's a lot of fake news today? Because I believe there is, and I believe the media is basically one big groupthink, the mainstream media.
Well, there's obviously an enormous amount of groupthink that goes on in the media, but also one of the ways in which the media's bias is most apparent is by what they talk about and what they don't talk about. So, for example, staying on the subject of immigration, they will tell the story of what they regard as being a sympathetic case of a particular illegal immigrant and whatever they think that illegal immigrant is facing. But they don't tell the stories of the American families that have lost loved ones to sanctuary cities and illegal immigrants, or the American workers that have lost jobs to illegal immigrants, or the American schools that have been affected by years of illegal immigration. They don't tell the story from the perspective of the American citizen and the American family.
Well, I think that, the people that changed this election were the forgotten men and women in Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida, Missouri, and all around the country. Some 50 million of them out of work, in poverty, on food stamps, and can't get jobs. They can't get jobs.
Exactly. And they said this year, America, Washington, D.C., and indeed the world will hear our voice.
Well, so I know that they're waiting. Explain the difference, what the president's been able to do on his own versus what he needs Congress to help with.
That's a great question. I mean, if you look at...
By the way, I love when you tell me that's a great question. Go ahead.
If you look at what we've done administratively, it's been historic. For every one new regulation, 16 have been eliminated. I've talked to people in the regulatory community. No one's ever seen anything like it before. To the extent in which we came in, we froze new regulation, and we started taking the axe to old regulations, small and large, including some very big ones. We ended the moratorium on coal leasing. We took action on the Obama administration's Clean Power Plan and the Waters of the United States rule, which is something that's very negative for our farmers and ranchers, and on it goes. You've seen the progress we've made on border security and going after the criminal gangs and cartels and the MS-13. You've seen what we've done in terms of beginning to improve law enforcement, like at the Justice Department, putting in new tough-on-crime policies to get some of to reverse, hopefully, the surge in violent crime we've seen in recent years. And what we've done on American energy, obviously, has been amazing. Coal exports are up 60%. This is because of a president who has led every day relentlessly. And we have also made major changes at the Department of Veterans Affairs, and this is true, we have signed into law several major veterans bills, both on veterans' choice and also veterans' accountability to fire bad federal workers who fail our veterans. But what do we need from Congress? We need to repeal and replace Obamacare. We're going to work with them on middle-class tax cuts and corporate tax reform to make America the best place in the world to hire workers, start a business, grow, and invest and move capital. We're obviously going to need Congress to work with us on infrastructure. We're going to need Congress to work with us to hire more ICE officers to keep our communities safe, to build a border wall to keep our country safe, to make long-term improvements to our immigration system like the ones the president unveiled last week to protect our workers and our wage earners. And so these are all things where we're going to need Congress to step up. It's not a Republican issue. It's not a Democrat issue. These are core American issues about taking care of our country and our people and their future.
All right, Stephen Miller of the White House. He is a senior advisor to the president. Thanks for being with us. Great job last week. And we got to take a break here.